All righty, so it's 12:06, so we're going to go ahead and kick off. I think everybody that was trying to get on has already gotten on. I don't see anybody else trying to connect right now, so we're going to go ahead and kick off. So first and foremost, good morning, everyone. My name is Bill Rorman. I'm the training coordinator for the Center for Information Technology Excellence here on campus. We are excited to have Ms. Terry Green with us today. She's from Light Technology Solutions. She's been a chief information officer and a chief information security officer specializing in telecommunications, educational institutions, and technology services for over 14 years. We're excited to have her as our guest speaker today, and she's excited to share with us some information about how women have broken through the glass ceiling to advance in technology. So at this time, I'll hand it over to Ms. Green, and I ask for your undivided attention. Thanks so much.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing today?
I hope great. How are you?
I am peachy. I can't complain. As always, I say I woke up this morning. So as Bill stated, we're going to go over some quick things. I know I always get this one question. I look so young. Well, looks can be deceiving, right? So I say one thing. The quickest thing I learned really quickly when I entered technology was I had to not try to fit in, but I had to it was okay for me to stand out. We as women in technology, we run into, you're afraid that you can be really, really bright in the area. You can come off as very, very abrupt. I know I do. I used to when I first entered this career, and it took something that no one would ever tell me in a book, looking in the mirror and understanding what I was seeing for myself and letting myself know it was okay. It's not what you know, but it's how you distribute what you know. And then being in leadership, it was really quick. I wanted to be a leader. A leader to me is somebody that can affect the next person so he can be ultimately a leader and then he can be able to train the next one. It wasn't about what I harbored inside of me, but how much I had that I can expel to the next person to make them a greater individual. So as stated, I have been in technology for about 15 years now. I have about 150 school districts in 4 states. So I have 125 employees. Light Technologies is my own company. I don't know what made me start it. And it had something to do with me kind of deciding, okay, I'm learning all these things in corporate America, but what can I do that was different? I had so many great managers. I've also had managers I was like, I don't want to control that asset, or how can I make sure I'm not that type of manager? So being able to go through everything I've learned, especially in school and in life, ultimately led me to where I am. So my story is really different. I went from orphan to CIO. So I always tell people it's not where you come from, it's where you decide to go. And I'm trying to be an example and lead them in the proper manner. I make sure I stay positive, even on my teams. So I really do follow the agile methodology because you want to build a team so strong, nobody can decipher who a leader is. But my whole goal was the things I do for myself, being able to make sure my team has the same ingredients and pedigree was really important to me. So we actually work out in the morning together. We do 15 minutes of mindfulness together because I believe a positive state of mind can produce positive results. And it's actually worked in my favor. If I told you I started this way, it would be a whole bunch of crap because that's not how I started. I had to learn as I was growing, well, ultimately who I wanted to be and who I wanted to be looked as. So how I was going to make a mark on the world was my biggest goal, right? There's not a lot of, I would say, people of my stature or even in technology, there's not a lot of female IT leaders that's actually African-American, which was a hard part, especially where I reside. I'm about probably one in the next African-American female that's actually my IT leader is probably 70 miles from me. And I found that to be a problem. When we go to Black school districts, I make sure it's important that I walk the halls to show the kids that it is palatable. You can become this. Success is just as great. But if we ultimately do not see it, and our kids are not able to get a mere reflection of who they can ultimately be, I think that we're doing a disservice. So I always try to figure out what can I do in every opportunity to give back or kind of get them to understand that there is something greater. I think the hardest thing is understanding that a ceiling didn't exist. So I always say we're only limited by ourselves. I'm my own limitation. That was the way I kind of walked into things. And it seemed like things kind of just just fell. And when I say they fell in my lap. But it was not about the cards that I was dealt. It was about how was I going to deal the cards ultimately to kind of win my hand. And I think that's how we have to look at things in our careers, as well as with the diversity and inclusion thing that's out here. That's really, really big now. One of my prime joys is in St. Louis, Mike Brown School District. So I'm one of the people that's actually have a hand in kind of reshaping what that school district looks like, and being able to show the kids there is something greater. I'm actually sitting in my office at that school district right now. And it's really close to heart, because when we look at where we are today and where we eventually want to be later, it has to take some kind of stance. I just made a commitment. I'm starting my own scholarship because my ultimate goal was to meet for success. I wanted to send 30 kids to college for free. I'm not at that level yet. So I'm actually I have to start somewhere. It's that stepping stone. So I'm giving away $10,000 to kind of help bridge the gap of women and minorities in technology. And I'm doing it 2 ways. So 5,000 will go towards a minority woman that's been accepted to a 4-year program, and she's studying information technology or cybersecurity. The other 5,000 will go to someone that's already in the program. And they have to have at least 3.5 GPA. And they will have to actually write out an essay stating why they deserve it. And it's called The Change Begins Now, because ultimately it begins with us. I think that stance is how I've done everything in my life, including from the beginning when I had the hand that I was never dealt. So my career over tenure has been really, really interesting. Now, don't judge me. So I didn't always start. I actually was Grammy nominated in 2014. So I was able to kind of take that musical stance, and I only did positive music. However, I took that platform to be able to still kind of provoke some kind of positivity out there, because I believe feeding the soul is feeding the mind is how we ultimately conquer anything that's in front of us. I have been overlooked for positions regardless if I had more knowledge. I would never say you're smarter, because everybody is smarter in their own right. But if I had more knowledge than a person, mainly because I wasn't the correct sex, or ultimately I wasn't the correct color, or it was about the way I wore my hair. Like it's been so many different things. And ultimately, like I said, I came to a stance where I said, they're going to actually accept me for who I am. I want to become so great where my appearance didn't matter. When people ultimately reach out to you because they know the work that you've put out there, and they're asking for you to become a part of them. And I was able to kind of make that happen for myself, but it's because I never gave up. I never looked at an obstacle. Instead, I looked at an opportunity, because in every weakness, there's an opportunity for change and growth. And ultimately, putting a path in place to make it where I can cross the roadblock was the biggest goal for me. Now we're at a point where we need more women in technology. We need more minorities. And it's not just about diversity, it's about diversity and inclusion to me. But what does diversity really mean? I think to me, it's just saying I need more people with different backgrounds at a table, so ultimately we can create the best solution. Because if everybody is of one like mind and one sound, we're going to miss something, especially when you start thinking about artificial intelligence. If we don't have all of these mindsets, we can be able to think from different perspectives, and ultimately we're going to have what we currently have now, right? I don't know about you, but I've noticed Siri is a woman. Yeah, Alexa is a woman. Who's going to tell Bill what to do? And ultimately somebody has to be at the table where we're kind of we're going to encompass our own biases in technology, not knowing it because they're indirect biases and we're not intentionally doing it. To kind of shift the narrative, like I said, I've started things with kind of my scholarship program. I started internship programs to go back to certain schools for kids that's actually kind of double majoring. So they might graduate with their associate's degree as well as their high school diploma, and we'll offer them an internship to be able to give them the experience to kind of go with it, or help them get a certification so they can have a greater chance of actually fulfilling the gap. But now it's, what do we do as the companies? I sit on a lot of different boards, like at University of Missouri, we'll actually work with executives and per se that's going back to make sure we have that customer component in, because in technology, we're not that personable. I know that's a myth, I believe. Probably not. But I'm not that personable sometimes either, right? But being able to actually know that and figure out how you can actually, what you can do to ultimately make a difference. So we're not people that service in technology, but we're technology people. So getting back to that and making sure it's one in hand, I think is really important in technology. Stop thinking about the fact that you are a woman. That's a gift. I think women are a little bit more strategic in some senses, but we need men and women to actually make a complete workforce and to understand the power behind anything from technology to life. And I think that's what I'm really trying to focus on. Like I said, there have been a lot of obstacles. I had to jump hoops. I had to always feel like I had to have more credentials. I had to have more experience. I had to have more knowledge. And even to this day, a lot of times, just recently, I was introduced to someone, and it was the president of an organization that was introducing me and a couple other people. But I was the only one at the table that actually they actually said my educational background on. So afterwards, sometimes when you're in the midst of that, the first thing you think is, why? Why does it matter? Well, I want you to own that. Own the fact that you did it. You went and you made sure that they could be able to say those things about you. I can always find a negative in something, but kind of focusing on a positive, because it takes two negatives to make a positive. And in the first place is what actually has fueled me, right? So I decided not to allow anything that do pop up to become a hindrance, but figure out what I can do to internalize that, to find the best root of me. Ultimately, I'm actually writing a book called The Hack of My Life, Orphan to CISO. And when I say I'm from the hood, yeah, I'm actually from Chicago. I came from the same schools. You got people like Derrick Rose. I have a lot of NBA players that did come from my high school, but ultimately it's not a school you will want to walk from. And people not saying that, a lot of times when they see you, they see something different. They don't understand how the hell you had to get through to get where you are. And the truth of the matter is, as long as you see it in the morning, that can be your spirit of inspiration, whatever you got to do to get yourself through, because you inspiring you ultimately will spark an interest in somebody else. And be the flame, be the spark. Don't be afraid to. I'm very vocal, but I've learned what I say actually matters. I learned to be a little bit more strategic in my thought patterns. At first, I was just like straight to the point. That wasn't working in my best interest. But being able to kind of learn from my mistakes ultimately made me a better individual and a better leader. I make sure, like I said, my teams not only understand what's going on, how we're saying things, but ultimately when I leave, that they can still be able to function like I'm not here. And that's where I take pride in, right? So even when COVID first happened, I didn't realize the impact that I really had on my team. I knew I worked out with them. I knew we had healthy foods because I believe I'm healthy, so I want them to be healthy, but I want to push it on them. And I'll never forget when COVID hit and we went remote, one of my team members said, "So what time are we working out?" That meant something, that they wanted to actually get up earlier. They were committed to putting in the extra work. And it was because not something that was just ingrained in them, because it was something that they were also seeking and they wanted it as well. Change has to begin with us. And ultimately, it has to begin with you. So when you look in the mirror in the morning, I do this every morning. So I do meditate. I have a serenity room in my home because I do believe, like I said, a positive state of mind produces positive results. But ultimately, I do that for one reason, because if I don't meet me in the morning, how I dare myself try to introduce myself to somebody else. We have to understand who we are, what our purpose is. And I think this is really important, especially as you try to go through the terrains of this glacier of being a woman in technology. I actually, at my office sit in St. Louis. I'm not only the CIO of my company, I'm the CIO of another company. And I'm the only woman in that entire company. I'm the youngest in leadership. I'm the only Black person in leadership. At first, I was affected by that. But then I started to figure out, what can I do to actually make a difference for somebody else? How can I pull more minorities in the company? And I'm not talking about just the only Black, literally, I'm the only minority. So I work for a company where it's 98% Caucasian. But if I kind of base myself based on stats, And ultimately, you know, I can't deter their mission, but I can have an effect or make an impact. And you think about how can you impact their mission? Ultimately, that's probably why I was brought in, because they realized change needs to occur, and they needed somebody that had the strength to kind of make the change, or was willing to make the change. And that's one thing we're trying to push to do. Last year, I got an award called the Unicorn Award. And I was like, well, get more women. That was me battling myself, because there's always some kind of battle. There's always another outlet, another outcome. But ultimately, ask yourself, why did you enter this field? What was your purpose? What is that you set out to do? And then from there, you craft a short-term and long-term plan to figure out how are you going to make the impact? What do you want to do? And ultimately, when you can process that, understand that, you'll become the greatest you, in some sense. I know a lot of you guys may have questions about why I specifically went into cybersecurity or information technology, and I didn't. I feel like I fell into it, right? So eventually I first went to school to be actually a paramedic, and I specialized in gunshot wounds. Well, in Chicago, that wasn't the smartest thing to do. I did an internship at a trauma-informed hospital, and I lost a 7-year-old kid, and I couldn't take it. So it had a huge impact on me. I took what I had learned from anatomy, and I kind of placed that, the next thing that I kind of merged it with was technology. The motherboard was just as comparable. And it seemed like when I was talking about the CPU, I was talking about the brain, and it kind of left me more intrigued, because now I get to kind of take the same stance in care and put it into something in a technological realm, which is kind of how I got into technology. Then I actually went to a school, which was another hiccup. I went to a school that I would not name. I got a dual bachelor's degree. GPA was a 3.8, and I'm like, I'm winning, right? Yes, no, I don't know. But that's how you felt. And I was at that point. But what ultimately happened was I went to go get my master's program, and I heard the words I never wanted to hear in my life. Your school lost their accreditation. So I started over. And I took the positive stance and said, maybe it was something I didn't learn. Maybe it was something else I needed to do. But in all retrospect, I was still making 80 grand a year. Even when I was a junior in college. I was actually the assistant chief engineer at La Ley 107.9, which is the number Spanish radio station in Chicago. By the time my sophomore year came, as a kiosk, you can pay your light bills and tickets. I was the only female on that project. And I wasn't able to celebrate my successes until I understood my failures. And I realized that you do meet failure on the way to success. And ultimately, it's not because what you did or what you were doing was not the correct thing, but it's something, it's a lesson in everything. Being able to take a positive stance from it and figure out how it can make me stronger was how I was able to kind of level up and understand things. And of course, my teacher used always to make a joke when I was in college, and he'll be like, you'll make 50 grand unless you're Terry. And that used to stress me out because I didn't understand why he was saying that. And ultimately, he had to sit me down and tell me it was something different about me. It had something to do with attention to detail, the way I kind of structurized things. And then he said, ultimately, I will end up teaching his class. I've never taught a class, nor do I think I have what it takes to be a teacher. However, that's that. I want to open this up in case there's any other questions or anything you guys want me to cover that I haven't covered, as far as, anything that happens in the workplace from a woman, and be able to figure out how we were able to overcome those gifts or those hops, and what something ultimately you can do to actually become the best you in this field. Bill, it's on you, Bill.
Yes, ma'am. Terry, thank you so much for sharing your words of wisdom, your experience, and the different stepping stones that you've taken to advance in technology. At this time, if anybody has any questions, you're more than welcome to unmute your mic and collaborate with Terry.
So Terry, I have a question because I'm raising a daughter. So the thing is, what's one of the key things or I guess the best way to introduce her to technology. Yes, I work in technology, but then she may see me and be like, that's what dad does. But is there anything to start that future generation getting into
Actually,
technology?
actually, it is. I always say meet the child where they are, not where we desire them to be, right? So when you think about some of the things that she loved, whether that's Legos, you can start there. You can actually help her build a robot with you. You can actually make a princess robot. I actually did it. I have a niece that I was like, she'll be a great candidate for technology, but I didn't want to force it on her. So I kind of started there. I started with what her interests were and kind of built from there. And then ultimately she was able to help me build the robot. And then we customized the robot to kind of program it to say some of her favorite things. Now the robot actually helps her in school. And I think it's kind of cool because it's also an icebreaker because we're in a virtual realm and she's in a different state, but we're still able to have those things together where we're learning and teaching at the same time, as well as getting that auntie niece time to kind of build our rapport. But start there, find out what her interests are. I know we as parents sometimes, we want them to do what we want them to do. First, we got to make sure she actually even likes technology and then kind of meet her there. If she's a real creative, you can start building things with her and then kind of introduce the technology spectrum to it. I think it's great if a child is into cybersecurity, you can start with Raspberry Pi, have them build out their own little casing. They'll take more personalization into it because they did it with you versus you doing it for them. If that makes any sense, Dwayne.
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Awesome. Any other questions?
I do have
I
a
guess-
question,
Go ahead.
and
Go ahead.
and that is being as you mentioned, being a minority inside especially in the cybersecurity field. One of the things is that as you go from different places, you tend to realize that most of the time you are the only one inside that area or inside that conference or that in that meeting room. What do you do to prepare yourself to give yourself more confidence to be able to meet the challenges that you know that some people are going to try to put in front of you, being a minority and being a woman?
You know what? Preparation is always key. In the beginning of my career, I used to always walk in and I think I was a little nervous, but now I walk in and I own it. I know a lot of people tell me when I walk in a room, they can tell that it's something about you. So they never, they used to do it all the time. They'll ask me the hardest questions, but then when you gave the answer, I think it was a shock. They didn't know you would know the answer. A lot of times I do kind of read audiences really well. So just being prepared. I always do my own agenda. I put in key frames. I watch trends just in case those questions may come up to let them know I'm on top of it as well. But if I don't have to, Mr. Rose, I try not to actually go in thinking I'm the only one. What I try to do is say I'm the chosen one. And when you go in, you make sure you were chosen for a reason. And if you're actually trying to show them that we belong at the table, this is the time to prove it. Did it make sense for you, Mr. Rose?
Yeah, it did. I know we have one or two students in here as well that are in the cybersecurity field. Do you have any advice for them, especially again, since the field go everywhere you go, it seems like so many people want so much experience before you can even get started. And then once you get inside, it's like they kind of look down on you. Do you have anything that you could say to encourage them?
Yes. First, if you really want to be great in this field, which I'm sure you do because you're in college, right? Start with some certifications, kind of build. I tell people all the time, if you haven't been in a company, the experience can start in your home. Just because you haven't built a server in a company does not mean you do not have to negate yourself from having an experience. Because a lot of people, they love a person that's willing to learn and put themselves in those type of environments. I built my first network in my house before I actually had the opportunity to do it for a company. And just recently, I think my CEO noticed, he said, Terry, you always seem prepared when you're not, but I'm very hands-on. So if I'm not doing it at work, because now you're doing a lot of administrative tasks, I do it at home. I have like 32 servers at home. My network at home is more secure than theirs. And I tell them a joke all the time. And it's because I know what's on my network, right? So, so you're able to close those ports up. But that's ultimately, you're going to, in this field, you're going to learn a lot of things in context that's probably not applicable in the real world. To prepare yourself for those instances, put yourself in that environment. If I learned everything that's in a book and is broken, what do I do next? Putting yourself in an environment to be able to kind of think outside of the box and realize it is just another form of chess. Your thing is you're trying to think outside the box. That's all chess is. But you have to be really strategic how you do it. It's ultimately how you prepare your career.
Any
I
other
think Ashley-
questions from any
I think-
attendees?
I think Ashley had a question she wanted to ask.
Awesome.
Yes. So I'm a senior. I'm an MIS major, and I'm trying to get into cybersecurity. But what was the first certification that you went to get after you were done with college?
Actually, Ashley, I was a little different. I didn't get any certifications. But what you can ultimately do now in today's world, you can actually get your Security Plus, which is a great foundational part in cybersecurity. You can also, if you want to do Linux, it's really, really great, in my opinion, to get really familiarized with Kali Linux software. You can kind of build that up in your own home, just because if you go into the penetration side, or you know, you have to be able to focus on what you ultimately want to do, but start with the foundational components. Your Security Plus is a great way to show them that you're vested in the outside educational components. And then if you decide you like Linux over Microsoft, I would kind of go there, be able to figure out what I can get on either side, where I can show that I'm really versed and from a security platform with Microsoft, or ultimately Linux, which to me would be the best way to go because they're a little bit more secure and scalable, but that's my own bias.
Thank you.
No problem.
Terry, this is Patricia Nahosa, and I just wanted to commend you. I really, really enjoyed your presentation. You are engaging, you are energetic. I'm ready to leave HR. I'm ready to go to cybersecurity. I'm just ready. Bill, Patty, everybody.
Come on down.
Come on
going
down.
with Terry. I'm going with Terry. So no, I just really enjoyed that. And I love your energy. I loved your message, and it was great listening to you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Patricia. So
Any other
ultimately,
questions?
okay, if you guys don't have any questions on here, we can actually do a follow-up with a poll or some things like that, or if it's some things you haven't thought about. Ultimately, cybersecurity is a really, really tricky field. There are a lot of vast areas in which you can go in. So I used to be a hacker for a long time, an ethical hacker, people. So only ethical things. However, you have to be mindful. You're gonna have to do some unethical things to be able to get to some ethical results. So ultimately, you have to be able to separate. There's a difference. I tell people there's a thin line between ethical and unethical, and making sure you understand that. And when you take the oath of cybersecurity, you have to understand the first person you have to be dedicated and make sure you understand the values is to you, because you take oath like a doctor. You're saying, I'm going to secure you because I care just that much. So ultimately, if you can drive with passion, you'll get there and no one can stop you.
Thank you, Terry.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Ellis.
You're welcome.
All right, well, if we have no further questions, Terry, on behalf of Prairie View A&M University and everyone here today, thank you for taking the time to speak with us today on the very important topic of women in tech, and more crucially, for setting an awesome example for all to emulate. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Yes, ma'am. Now, before everyone secures the call, if you'd stay on, Ms. Megan Lane's going to do a drawing. And so we're going to go ahead and announce today's winners from the seminar today, the webinar today. So I will do the drum roll, and Ms. Megan is doing the drawing right now. Again, the two prizes for today was a 24-inch LED monitor and a gift card. So Megan, the drum roll is rolling, and I'll let you pull those names.
Okay, so our first winner for the monitor is Miss Susan Breland,
Wah! Ms. Breland.
and we're located in the library, so you would be able to pick it up in the library, we can send you an email with where we are. And then for our gift card, we have a
Drum
$25
roll.
on gift card. It's actually Mr. Dwayne Marshall.
Dwayne.
I mean, thank you, everybody.
Uh-oh.
Hey.
I couldn't
Wow.
believe I drew
He
your
did it
name.
in his Elvis
Not gonna lie.
I
voice
got deep.
too.
I got deep. Yeah. Thank you.
He did it in his Elvis voice. There you go. Awesome. Well, congratulations, Susan and Dwayne. And again, thanks everybody for attending today's webinar with Ms. Terry. Awesome speaker, done a lot of great things in cybersecurity world as an information security officer. So we do appreciate your time. We do want to reiterate to you that Cybersecurity Awareness Month is the whole month of October. We still have another week full of events. So just keep scanning your QR codes, right? Do the scavenger hunt QR codes, attend the webinars. We have a webinar tomorrow for tips on keeping your kids safe online. So we'll do that tomorrow. And then next week, we also have another guest speaker, our own Dr. Choika, who will be giving a Internet of Things presentation to us. And he runs that credit CRI here on campus. So a lot of great information he'll share with us. So again, thanks so much for participating. We encourage you to stay informed and engaged and follow us through the whole month as we continue these events for you. Thanks so much. Have a great day.